ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's semi-final debate. My name is Isabella Jobel, and I am the chairman of this debate. The timekeeper is Anya Arikapudi. This debate will be judged by a panel of 3 adjudicators, who are Mr. Parsalides, Ms. Chua, and Mr. Wilkins. The topic of this debate is that Zoe Buhler's arrest was outrageous. The affirmative team seated to my right is from St. Dominic's, and the negative team seated to my left is from St. Dominic's. The speaking time for this debate is 5 minutes. A single warning bell will sound 1 minute before the speaking time, and a double bell will sound at the speaking time. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched off. I declare this debate open and call upon the first affirmative speaker, Sarah McCallum.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that the arrest of Zoe Buhler is outrageous. We, the affirmative team, believe that this statement is correct. We define the topic as arrest being the act of taking someone to a police station for committing a crime. Zoe Buhler, a 28-year-old woman who is 7 weeks pregnant, living in Ballarat, Victoria with no criminal record, and 2 young children, who has been arrested for a charge of incitement, who is planning a protest for the extent of the lockdown to be changed for the benefit of those in need, such as the elderly or those suffering with mental illness, and outrageous, shockingly bad or excessive. Tonight, as first speaker, I'll be talking to you about how the Victorian lockdowns are extreme and causing harm to the community's well-being, and how the arrest caused unnecessary stress on her mental and physical health, potentially harming her unborn baby. Our second speaker will be talking about how the reasons for Buhler's arrest was outrageous, as she was simply exercising her right to freedom of speech, and that the way that the arrest was carried out was disproportionate to the threat that she posed. Our third speaker will rebut and sum up our team case. It is no doubt that throughout these recent months, governments have worked extremely hard in order to restore the economy and get as many Australians back to work as soon as possible. As a result of the recent outbreak, one of their many plans are to increase the lockdown rules until most of the state has recovered. However, the extremity of these procedures are unfortunately causing harm. Professor Catherine Bennett, Chair of Epidemiology at the University of Melbourne, stated that the COVID restrictions in Melbourne are of a sledgehammer approach. Although we understand that the rules created by the Australian government are put into place to protect the greater good, we believe that the lockdowns are causing immense amounts of disturbance. Unfortunately, although the economy is on its way to recovery, this allows extreme side effects such as isolation, anxiety, and mental health disorders to take their toll on the general public. According to the ABC News, it was reported that there is estimated to be a 14% increase in suicide rates throughout Australia as a result of the COVID restrictions. By initiating a protest, Zoe Buhler's only intention was to highlight the issue to government officials as well as the general public. As a result of her highlighting this issue, according to ABC News, the Victorian government has allowed a single-person bubble. This allows those living alone to have the ability to connect with one other person in hopes to ease the loneliness and decrease mental health issues among individuals. Hence, there was no need to arrest Buhler, let alone handcuff or fine her, as she was not doing anything wrong by looking out for those in need within her community. After all, ladies and gentlemen, in times of these, it is extremely important to look after the fragile members of our society. My second point is about the unnecessary stress the arrest could have caused on Zoe Buhler's mental and physical health, which could have potentially harmed her unborn baby, as well as her family. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, it has been proven by scientists that the chronic stress of situations such as Buhler's arrest can cause extreme effects on the unborn baby's growth and future physical and mental development. Not only can stress during the pregnancy affect the unborn baby, but it also has a large effect on the mother. Victorian Police Assistant Commissioner Luke Cornelius stated that according to the Australian Policeman Law Book, the optics of arresting someone who is pregnant is terrible, as it could seriously impact the individual's mental health, disrupting her pregnancy. However, the policeman still arrested Buhler without any prior warnings. Not only did the police arrest Buhler in a manic and quick manner, they also did so in front of her 2 young children. In an ABC interview, Buhler stated that the police were too heavy-handed, especially to arrest me in front of my children, and it scared them. Studies conducted by the Centre for Treatment of Anxiety and Mood Disorders show that children who are exposed to experiences which cause stress at a young age are proven to have difficulties learning in school, trusting adults, forming relationships, and have a higher chance of developing depression and PTSD. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, this proves that Zoe Buhler's arrest was indeed outrageous. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we, the affirmative team, believe that the arrest of Zoe Buhler was outrageous. Thank you.
I call upon the first negative speaker, Cindy.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic of tonight's debate is that the arrest of Zoe Buhler is outrageous. We agree with the definition stated by the affirmative team. However, we would like to redefine outrageous. An example of outrageous is seen through the footage of another Victorian woman being choked by police and violently wrestled to the ground for not wearing a mask during the global pandemic. We, the negative team, truly believe that this statement is false. Today, as the first speaker, I'll be talking to you about how the context surrounding Buhler's intention to hold a protest was wrong and inconsiderate. I will also discuss how the procedure of the arrest was dignified and acceptable. Our second speaker will be presenting points regarding legal positivism and utilitarianism and how they apply to Buhler's situation. Lastly, our third speaker will rebut the affirmative team's case and summarize ours. The first speaker from the affirmative team has tried to tell you that she was pregnant and this could have affected her unborn child. Let us remember that she was only in her first trimester. As she stated, she had her first ultrasound scheduled for later in the day. Many people don't realize that they are pregnant at this stage, as the child is no bigger than a small tadpole. According to babycenter.co, some stress is quite usual and won't harm your baby. Stress can affect an unborn baby. However, only high levels of stress can have lasting effects, as according to ScienceDaily.com. A little bit of stress won't affect a baby, and in this particular case, an interview immediately after the arrest, Buhler stated that she was fine and that it was a bad decision on her part. Buhler also stated in 10 News that the police were nice and polite, using limited physical contact. The arrest was done in a professional manner in comparison to many anti-lockdown arrests, as expressed in my definition. The first speaker from the affirmative team has tried to tell you that the lockdown is harming mental health of citizens. However, Victoria lockdown has not seen a spike in suicides compared to last year, according to new data released recently by State's Coroner. Since the start of this year, 466 people have died by suicide in Victoria, compared to 468 suicides in the same year frame last year, when lockdowns were not present. One could also further argue that the extended time with the family and away from work has been beneficial to many mentally. It is also evident that despite not being able to physically engage with the community, there are numerous ways to stay in contact through assistance from our many technological advancements. Simply making a FaceTime can have similar benefits to social interaction, but furthermore is safe for both individuals. Firstly, the context surrounding Buhler's intention to hold a protest was wrong and inconsiderate. Buhler planned to execute a protest for Freedom Day on the 5th of September. The protest focused on inspiring the individual to fight for freedom, as according to her, the Melbourne government used scare tactics to prevent protests. At this time, Melbourne was in stage 4 lockdown, while Ballarat, the intended location for her protest, was in stage 3 lockdown. For some context, stage 3 lockdown means that staying home is crucial, with only the exception being to obtain necessities, medical care, work, education, if deemed necessary. Clearly, Buhler's protest did not fit any of the parameters given by the Victorian government, making it a completely unnecessary event. Furthermore, Buhler's protest was catering for more than 80 people, greatly exceeding the limit of mass gathering, risking the contraction of COVID-19 for any individual involved. Buhler was made well aware that rebelling against the government's advice regarding lockdowns would cause trouble for herself, along with her family and families of other attendees. According to The Sun, in Buhler's interview following her arrest, she stated that she was having a bimbo moment. And she didn't realize she wasn't allowed to protest, which was clearly an excuse. Either way, Zoe Buhler inevitably must face consequences for her actions. Therefore, Buhler's offence of inciting the protest was wrong in many ways, justifying why the protest was not at all outrageous, leading to my second point. My second point is that the arrest was dignified and acceptable. Although Buhler was pregnant and arrested in front of her children, we want to accentuate the fact that the arrest was necessary. Buhler's conduct breached the law, therefore required a lawfully dignified response by the police. The increase in COVID risk prompted Victorian police to resort to more extreme measures in accordance with the additional power granted when a state of disaster was declared. With evidence of ineffectiveness, police adopted a tougher stance to prevent the breach of COVID-19 restrictions. There have been cases where police have fined people for inciting anti-lockdown protests. However, as stated in Australia, fines were not deterring wrongdoers. In natural circumstances, various activities such as protesting would only be considered a crime if posing a threat. However, under a state of disaster, they are subject to penalty, increasing the opportunity for the virus to spread. Buhler was initially uncooperative with the police when asked to go outside, so out of protocol, they utilised handcuffs. According to Victoria Legal Aid, when an officer is in possession of a warrant, as these officers were, they hold the ability to hold an individual. Thank you.
Call upon the second affirmative speaker, Georgina Salandra. Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Georgina Salandra, and tonight I'll be speaking as the second affirmative speaker. The topic for our debate is that the arrest of Zoe Buhler is outrageous. We, the affirmative team, believe that this statement is true. The first affirmative speaker has tried to tell you that Zoe Buhler's baby was only able to feel high level of stress. However, I ask you, what is more stressful than being abruptly arrested in your own home? Surely this is one of the most high level stresses in life. Therefore, these stresses cannot be ignored, and as well as their effects on her baby. The first affirmative speaker has also said that the suicide rates have not risen,
However, this is untrue as it is only September in the year and you cannot predict how many more suicides could happen further along in the year. Our first speaker has already spoken to you about the repercussions of the Victorian lockdowns on the general public, as well as the unnecessary stress the arrest caused on Zoe Buhler and her family. Tonight, I'll be speaking to you about how the arrest was outrageous, as Buhler was just exercising her right to freedom of speech, as well as how the arrest was disproportionate to the threat Buhler posed. It is important to note that throughout this whole issue, Buhler was just expressing her own opinion on the severity of the Victorian lockdowns. So why was Buhler charged with incitement? According to Maria O'Sullivan, Director for the Centre of Human Rights Law, incitement is the act of encouraging someone to do a crime. This charge is normally linked to the commission of a serious crime such as murder or assault. Is creating a protest, encouraging others to go, really as bad as encouraging someone to kill? The act of protesting, let alone creating a protest, is not of itself a criminal act. However, Buhler was still fined $20,000 as a result. Furthermore, after the fine was distributed, as if that wasn't severe punishment enough, the police came into her home with an arrest warrant and handcuffed her without any notice. Let me pose a question to you, ladies and gentlemen. Was all this necessary just because a woman created a Facebook post? In addition, a quote from the newspaper The Australian stated that she is one of thousands of people who have posted on Facebook for people to attend a Freedom Day this weekend. So why didn't the police arrest others who created protests with the same intention as Buhler? Another article from The Australian also questions the fairness of the police's actions, asking how many of the Black Lives Matter protesters got arrested for posting their protests before their protest got the go-ahead from the government? None. This is extremely unfair, as Buhler alone got arrested, meaning that everyone else who wanted to initiate a protest has to be arrested too, in order for it to be fair. Everyone has a freedom of speech, and it is the choice of the sole individual to listen to others and act on it. One person cannot be held responsible for another's actions. If I jumped off a cliff right now, would you follow me? I think not. Hence, the arrest of Zoe Buhler is not only outrageous, but also unfair, as by arresting her, in doing so they reprimand her freedom of speech. My second point is how the arrest was disproportionate to the threat Buhler posed. A few weeks ago, Zoe Buhler was arrested in her own home, handcuffed in front of her family, even though she never resisted any charges. According to Victorian law, a police officer is not entitled to use handcuffs on a person merely because an arrest has been made. According to the Police Accountability Project Principal Solicitor, the footage of Buhler's arrest portrayed no threat posed by her conduct, which was suggestive of the need to apply handcuffs. Buhler had even offered to remove the post from Facebook, clearly showing her willingness to follow police instruction. Throughout the arrest, Buhler was very cooperative and did not make a fuss, so why was she handcuffed? This behaviour has been noted by many members of the public, with the President of the Victorian Bar, Wendy Harris, saying that she understood the importance of individuals adhering to the law, particularly during a pandemic, but she said that she was concerned that Buhler's arrest appeared disproportionate to the threat she presented. Buhler's arrest is also particularly outrageous when compared to others who had been arrested on the same charge. According to the Age newspaper, the Victorian Bar is concerned that the enforcement response to Ms Buhler's conduct is apparently at odds with other reported and more measured responses by the authorities to organisers or promoters of similar protests planned or carried out in contravention of public health directives. This shows how even the Professional Association for Barristers in Victoria is concerned that Buhler's arrest was outrageous in comparison to the threat she posed as well as other people's arrests. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we, the affirmative team, strongly and firmly believe that the arrest of Zoe Buhler was outrageous. As second speaker, I have clearly elaborated on how each aspect of Buhler's arrest was completely atrocious. The reasoning for her arrest to the way it was executed by the police force was completely outrageous based on her cooperation and the insignificant threat she posed. I leave you with this thought. Are we really prepared to let the police take away our freedom of speech and mishandle situations in the interest of appealing to the public? Thank you.
call upon the second negative speaker, Jodie.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that Zoe Buhler's arrest was outrageous. We, the negative team, believe this statement is indisputably false. Now, onto my rebuttals. The second speaker from the negative team has tried to tell you that Zoe Buhler protested for human rights and freedom of speech. However, freedom of speech overshadows the vitality of lockdowns and social distancing, as it involves putting other people's health at risk. Because the issue is, Zoe Buhler planned to protest against one of the most effective forms of protection in a pandemic like this, which therefore gives herself and others who would protest with her the right to transmit a disease. There is a fine line between freedom of speech and sheer selfishness. She also said that the arrest was out of proportion. This is utterly false. The police need to resort to more extreme measures to deter people from breaching COVID-19 restrictions. According to The Australian, fines are not deterring wrongdoers. Zoe Buhler even stated herself that she is too scared to do something like this again after the arrest, according to a 9 News interview. This shows that punishment teaches lessons. Our first speaker has discussed the wrongness of the idea of Zoe Buhler's protest and how therefore the police's conduct was acceptable. Today, I will talk of legal positivism and utilitarianism in the context of Zoe Buhler's arrest. Now to my first point. Firstly, in a pandemic where the community's safety is the priority, the law must be firm. Legal positivism is the outlook that the law must be obeyed, whatever its content. That laws are simply the expression of the will of the authority who created them, and must not be influenced by moral standards, such as Zoe Buhler being pregnant in her case. What really matters here is that she breached the law, and this required a legally appropriate response by the police, as our first speaker has expanded on. By committing the offence of incitement, Buhler was potentially putting millions of lives at stake, obviously not caring about the fact that there could be another upswing of COVID cases that would wipe out millions. Buhler thoroughly knew the wrongness of her doings, as immediately after she appeared on 7 News in an interview apologising for having a bimbo moment. Section 321G of the Victoria Crimes Act of 1958 makes it an offence for a person to pursue a course of conduct which will involve the commission of an offence. Buhler's planned protest would therefore clearly violate restrictions while Victoria was under Stage 4 lockdown. Zoe's personal circumstances are irrelevant and especially do not excuse her offence. Therefore, the arrest was not outrageous, as she must face the legal consequences in accordance with the law and public health directives, for the law must ensure all are held equally accountable for their actions and cannot make exceptions for the unique circumstances of each individual. If the coronavirus does not discriminate, then why should the law? Now, to my second point. Secondly, the use of extensive powers in the course of a pandemic is justified by their efforts in controlling the coronavirus. This reflects the philosophical principle of utilitarianism, a theory that the most ethical choice is the one that will produce the greatest good for the greatest number, which in a public health context yields the individual's desires in order to protect the well-being of everyone else. By planning a protest against COVID restrictions, according to BBC, Buhler violates the rights of those who want to feel safe in a raging pandemic. By doing so, Buhler implies that she would rather see the world crumble than to spend another day in lockdown. And as Premier of Victoria, Daniel Andrews, had said, if you make an inconsiderate choice around your alleged personal liberty, this is not about human rights. Is Buhler really promoting freedom, or is it just at her own selfish expense? Hence, when arresting Buhler, the police exercised their powers in accordance with the Emergency Management Act. Victoria, unlike any other state, declared a state of disaster, which further justifies the extreme measures taken to prevent the risk of a major outbreak, and not to infringe on the so-called rights of Zoe Buhler. The arrest was therefore not outrageous and is justified on utilitarian and legal grounds. Remember, staying home is a team effort with mutually beneficial outcomes between you and the wider community. So, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, the importance of keeping the law unbiased and executing it without considering emotive factors, as well as allowing the government to fulfil their duty of ensuring safety for the whole of Victoria and potentially Australia, justifies Zoe Buhler's arrest as not at all outrageous. Thank you.
Call upon the third affirmative speaker.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Livia Trung, and tonight I'll be speaking as the third affirmative speaker. The topic of tonight's debate is that the arrest of Zoe Buhler is outrageous. We, the affirmative team, strongly agree with the statement. I will firstly begin with rebuttals and then be giving a summary of the affirmative team's case. The first negative speaker has said that the police were very polite and nice to Zoe. This is incorrect. Police officers being polite and nice does not mean that what they did was correct. The act of being nice or polite to someone else is considered as basic etiquette and should be the way that police act nonetheless. Therefore, just a simple statement of a police acting nice and polite towards Zoe definitely does not justify that her arrest was not outrageous. The police also put Buhler into handcuffs. This evidently shows that they were not treating her nicely or politely, as handcuffing her in her circumstance was not protocol. The first and second speakers have stated that Buhler's actions endangered the lives and health of others. This is false, because the act of Zoe simply posting a Facebook post about a protest definitely did not put anyone's lives or health at risk. However, if referring to the influence that her post may have on others that may lead to the health and lives of other people being put at risk, Zoe did not directly cause that to happen. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion and choices. The way in which they decide to behave is completely up to them, and it is entirely their own fault. So, if people do end up going out to protest, which then puts the lives and health of others in danger, Zoe Buhler does not hold the responsibility for another's decision. The second speaker has stated that the police had to act in that manner in order to show the consequences of disobeying the rules. This is incorrect. The policeman could have never known that the arrest would have been recorded or posted online, where it received such backlash and criticism. This therefore disregards this entire argument, as why would the policeman go to such a great extent in acting like this towards Zoe, if her arrest was indeed not outrageous? Even if acting in this manner in order to show the consequences of disobeying the rules was their initial intention, it certainly did not reflect that way onto the public. It in fact damaged the PR for the police, according to The Age. People saw this as a sign of inconsistencies Victorian police were showing in managing lockdown rules, especially considering how heavy-handed they were in handling Buhler's arrest. Therefore, it would have in fact been beneficial to police to not act in this manner, as it gave the public a bad impression and did not show fair or proportionate consequences. The second speaker has stated that being pregnant does not put you above the law, and therefore Buhler's arrest was not outrageous because she shouldn't have to be treated different as a result of being pregnant. However, this is false. If being pregnant does not make you above the law, then neither does being a police officer. According to BBC.com, there is no person or organisation that has as much potential power over us as the police. But there are countless cases of police subtly misusing their power, and this has led to various unlawful arrests where the victim's actions could not be justified as to why they were arrested. Buhler's case could be one of them. The source also makes a reminder that no one is above the law. Hence, the argument of being pregnant does not put you above the law is invalid because no one is above the law, not even the police. The second negative speaker has said that Buhler's attempted protest was selfish and her arrest was showing utilitarianism in the light of COVID-19. However, Buhler actually stated in her post that social distancing and masks must be worn. This shows how Zoe was taking precaution, trying to protect herself and others from COVID-19. I will now be giving a summary of the affirmative team's case. Sarah, our first speaker, has discussed how the Victorian restrictions are causing more harm than good. They have led to various mental health issue cases increasing, especially the suicide rate in Australia. The second point that Sarah discussed was the unnecessary stress that the arrest caused for Buhler's mental and physical health, along with the well-being of her family. This could have caused extreme effects on her unborn baby's growth, as well as traumatized her children. Georgina, our second speaker, has spoken to you about how her arrest was outrageous because she was exercising her right to freedom of speech. It is deemed even more outrageous because she did not have a chance to negotiate taking down the post even when she offered to. The second point that she discussed was the way in which the police arrested Buhler was disproportionate to the threat that she posed. This means that her arrest was outrageous because there was no need to handcuff her in the context of the given situation. In conclusion, we the affirmative team strongly agree with the statement that the arrest of Zoe Buhler is outrageous. Thank you for listening.
I call upon the third negative speaker, Tanisha Taylor.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for this debate is that the arrest of Zoe Buhler is outrageous. We, the negative team, genuinely believe that this statement is false. The second speaker from the affirmative team has tried to tell you that there are other arrests that are more outrageous than Zoe Buhler's. This statement is completely false. The police were in fact gentle and considerate of her pregnancy, allowing her to get uncuffed to get changed. An example of a true outrageous arrest is the arrest of a Victorian woman who were choked by police, according to dailymail.com. The second and third speaker from the affirmative team has tried to tell you that it was unnecessary to use handcuffs on Buhler. This is wrong, as there are different situations in which police may place a person in handcuffs without violating their civil rights. A warrant was executed on Buhler, and according to fine law, the right of a police officer to use handcuffs to detain occupants of areas being searched was affirmed to be not a violation of unreasonable seizure of a person by the High Court of Australia in 2005. The third speaker has tried to tell you that Buhler was going to imply COVID restrictions. The area of Ballarat where Buhler is from is under stage 3 restrictions, not allowing anyone to form a group of 2 or more, as they can interact and cause the spread of the disease, according to the Victorian government. Throughout the debate, the affirmative team has also discussed 2 themes, including the disproportionality of the arrest of Buhler's offence and the effect of Buhler's stress due to the arrest. I will break this down in my speech. The affirmative team has said that the arrest was disproportionate to Buhler's crime, that this is wrong in 3 ways. Firstly, Buhler impeached Section 321 of the State's Crime Act in 1958, which makes it an offence to of a person to pursue a course of conduct which will involve the commission of an offence. Buhler had the audacity to selfishly incite others to further put Victoria into danger. To further put it into perspective, Victoria went into a strict Stage 3 lockdown on August 6th. Thirdly, Victoria is currently in a state of disaster, meaning that due to the towering number of COVID-19 cases, they have taken safety measures to an extreme to protect the public. Police arrested Zoe Buhler to deter people from breaching COVID-19 restrictions. There have been many previous cases where police have charged people with inciting an anti-lockdown protest and issued them with fines. With this proving ineffective, the police have needed to adopt a tougher stance which could prevent the spread of COVID-19. Finally, the police had the right to take Buhler's devices. Section 465 of the Crimes Act of 1958 permits police to supply any information that is reasonable to access the device, where the device is on the premises in which a warrant is executed. The affirmative speaker has also gone to say that the stress of the arrest could affect Buhler's pregnancy. This is wrong. Firstly, as discussed, Buhler was 6 weeks pregnant at the time of her arrest. A woman is pregnant for 9 months, and in that time span, she is inevitably going to experience stress. According to Baby Centre, some stress is common and will not harm the baby. Additionally, Buhler herself reported to 9 News that she was feeling completely okay, which makes the affirmative team's argument invalid. Secondly, the affirmative team is indefinitely steering away from the legal view of this topic. Lastly, obvious in the videotape of Buhler's arrest, the police acted respectfully, and any stress that Buhler felt was all caused by herself. Our first speaker spoke to you about the context surrounding Buhler's intention to hold a protest, which is wrong and inconsiderate. Our second speaker spoke to you about the context of legal positivism and utilitarianism. Ladies and gentlemen, let me leave you with this. Is it really outrageous when the police were only fulfilling their duty and acting to keep out the rest and to keep the rest of us safe? Thank you.
I invite a representative of the Adjudication panel to come forward and announce the result.
Can I begin by firstly congratulating both teams on making it to the semi-final series. It obviously demonstrates the level at which you've excelled throughout this very condensed season. I'm sure that you've all appreciated the opportunity throughout the season to be able to participate, and it's been terrific to be able to have in this year of 2020 a debating season at all. So thank you so much for participating in this season, because of course without you there isn't one. Can I also extend my thanks and appreciation for parents, caregivers, loved ones, teachers who have supported their debaters throughout this season. I know that it can often be a challenge, particularly as we drag you out at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday night to observe your students, but I know that it is far easier for them to deliver their presentation when they've got a crowd of smiling and supportive faces. So thank you for all of your efforts throughout this season. Tonight you'll have seen that there were 3 of us at the back of the room furiously writing notes. So at a finals level we have a panel of adjudicators make the decision. We don't provide speaker by speaker feedback that you'd ordinarily get in the season. We just award the overall decision. I can advise that tonight's debate was incredibly close. In fact, it was a split decision, so 2 voted in favour of one team and 1 for the other, and I can announce that the winner of tonight's debate was the affirmative team. Unhelpfully, we didn't get the names, so we haven't filled this out yet, but very pleased to also announce that the debater of the night award goes to the second negative speaker. Bring it back to us so we can fill it out once we've got your name. Congratulations again to both teams. Thank you again for your participation. As the chairman said, we look forward to seeing you at our grand final series in a week's time, and I'll hand you back to our chairman.
I call upon a member of the runner-up team to give a vote of thanks.
Thank you for the affirmative team for versing us. I'm so glad that there's going to be a St. Dominic's team going through in the grand final. Also for the adjudicators for judging us, and also for the chairman and the timekeeper, and also to the audience who came here to Nazareth, especially during these times. And thank you for Nazareth for hosting this debate. Yeah.
I call upon a member of the winning team to second that vote of thanks.
We'd just like to second that vote of thanks. Thank you for the adjudicators, parents and teachers who helped us. You guys, it was really super fun debating against you, and we really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance. I now declare this debate closed.